Welcome, Wrestle Buddies, to episode 3 of Journey of a Pro Wrestler, and I'm joined, as always, by the star of our show, Kid Bandit. Kid, how we doing, buddy?
I just made this coffee, and it's like... I just woke up, too.
Hey, we'll get your coffee down here, that'll wake you up for happy days. So, yeah, just a little recap, guys, on what we've been doing the last couple of weeks. So, obviously, we talked about Kids when he was younger, back home in the Philippines, his journey into finding wrestling at first, watching it. Then last week we talked about how we come to the US and going into the Nightmare Factory, and then that's where we left it, didn't we, buddy? So this week we're going to go into the end of the Nightmare Factory, and then what's being next, what's going on next. So first, final days in the Nightmare Factory, how was you feeling at that point? Were you kind of feeling like, oh, this is coming to an end, and you were a bit disappointed, or did you feel like positive and kind of, okay, now this is my time?
Mixed feelings for sure. I believe this was around the time Cody became a father. So he wasn't around as often, which was fine because, like, you know, if there was ever a reason for us to lose Cody Rhodes in the middle of our training, it would be because he became a dad. Life changing, you know, which we were all happy for him. And after that, we kind of had we got assigned coaches for our matches in general. Hello. Oh no, what happened? Uh-oh. Hello?
It's alright. I've got you. You're here.
Okay. Technical difficulties. I
can hear you fine. Oh, we've lost them. This is what happens when you stream live, guys, so bear with us 2 seconds. He should be back any minute now. I'm hoping he will anyway. There he is. He's back. Oh.
Yeah.
He's up.
Okay.
Do you know what? Then you went upside down, sideways, eyes in and out.
All right. So,
it looked like a crazy promo, that then.
I am Iron Man. It was a glitch in the Matrix. Okay. Yeah. It was. We got assigned coaches for our matches for the showcase, and I got Alan Angels, which was dope because like he had ideas for us. They definitely curbed a lot of my craziness as far as like all the stuff I wanted to do versus like just keep it as bare minimum as possible to make sure that you can, you know, get through the match, not die. So yeah, it was me versus Trevor Outlaw, and you know we put on a pretty good match. I'm proud of my debut. Not a lot of people can look back in retrospect and on their first match and say, hey, that was actually pretty good, you know, like even as much as I've grown since my very first match, I like to look back on it and ruminate and just think, wow, like that was actually not bad for someone who just who's only done this for one time. That being said, I have done a show after my debut. I've had a show, if not 2, every week. You know, I believe I'm at 75, 77, like between there right now. I gotta look at my notes, but I'm at 77 matches now, I think, or 78, which isn't bad for someone who's only been doing it for 7 months. That means I average about 10 matches per month, and that's a lot more than most, you know.
Aye, and also during the pandemic, you know, the fact that you're still being able to get out there and at this point and stuff, you know, you can't grumble, can you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing about wrestling schools is that like a lot of the students, they end up like not necessarily leaving the mother's nest because, you know, when you're training somewhere, it's easy for you to just come in and train without actually like actively working, you know, and I'm sure there's a lot of factors going on about it, but with the Nightmare Factory, the opposite happened. They pretty much kicked us out. They were like, not kicked us out. They were just like, hey, your camp is done. Go out there and do the indies. And that's what Ish and I did. My tag partner and I, we were just like, okay, we're going to do the indies, you know. And unfortunately, we're flying under the radar at the most because we're in the West Coast, and the West Coast scene is not as booming as East Coast. And it is in a weird way. It's like if you're a bigger name in the indies, you'll be fine on the West Coast. But if you're not as big of a name, it's hard to get it's hard to get your name out big on bigger shows than the West Coast.
So you're just trying to travel a lot at the moment, and how to take it.
Yeah, I want to say I'm the most traveled indie wrestler from my neck of the woods, if not the United States right now. Just because, like, I mean, that's not even like me trying to brag. I think I'm putting it into perspective. It's like I'm doing, like, this week I'm doing a show in Oregon, but last week I was in Alabama, and then I was supposed to be in Indiana. The week after next week, I'll be doing North Dakota for Time Bomb. And I know you're in the UK, so it's not, you're not quite savvy with the geography, but
I know quite well. I know America quite well.
Okay, but for those in the chat right now who aren't familiar with U.S. geography, basically, like if California is like London right now, I'm basically flying to Germany. And then from Germany, I'm flying to Denmark. And then from Denmark, I'm flying to Russia. And then back to London in the span of 5 days. And it's like, let's see how your body can tolerate that.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? Like with America, how big it is. I think sometimes people in the UK don't realise that. Sometimes it's like a 4 or 5 hour flight just to get to somewhere else in America. They don't realise because, like, from the Scotland up into down to London. So from say Edinburgh to London, it's about a 20-minute flight.
What?
So yeah.
What?
From one end to the other, So it's I don't think people appreciate how far the different states are in America.
That's insane because, like, culturally wise, Scotland is like very vastly different from like like the rest of. So that's mind blowing to me because I fly to Vegas a lot and it's like an hour away, but the Vegas is just like Americans, but like gamblers. See,
where I live in Liverpool, which is the northwest of England, and for me to get to London by car it takes me 4 hours, and for me to get to Glasgow in Scotland it takes me 4 hours, and if I want to go to Ireland it'll take me 2 hours on a ferry. So I'm right literally just
so much more compact, and that's mind blowing because I'm going by. I've never been in the United Kingdom, so I'm going by like movie stereotypes, but or video game stereotypes. Well, I've seen like each Ireland is obviously different from like Liverpool. Or, I assume Liverpool is different from like the culture of like people from London. But in my case, you go from Los Angeles to Vegas, and the only difference is like the people in Vegas are just a little bit more promiscuous. And the people in LA a little bit more like fake because Hollywood and gambling, I guess. But that's like the only difference. It's so minute.
It's crazy, isn't it? Well, Courtney in the chat says she can't wait for tonight's AEW Dark special. And My Name is Sol says consistency is the key. The wider you cast your net, the more opportunities available to do. Good on you. Keep yourself out there and getting noticed.
Oh yeah, I was literally talking to.
Oh, we lost him. He's always got that trigger happy finger. Those things. Courtney, Sol, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for everybody who's tuning in today. Appreciate it. I'm sure he'll be back on in a matter of seconds when he realises that he's clicked off again. He's back.
It's just funny because like I was finagling with the chat button to see like so I could like read along with what you were saying, but I accidentally pressed leave and I'm like shit.
No worries.
Okay.
Yeah, My Name is Sol says people underestimate the size of the states. I heard recently England is only about the size of Mississippi and Japan is the size of California. Yeah, do you know what? You're probably not wrong. So I turned round, I was talking to Jimmy, one of the guys on WrestleBuddy guys, the other day, and he lives in Florida, I believe. I think it's Florida, yeah. And he was saying about when you've got to go to different states, you know, to when you've got to get a driving license for different states, where here in the UK we can drive all through over from London into France, across to Germany, Holland, anywhere in the EU on the same license with the same license plates and everything else. We don't have to change anything. It's crazy the way that like they have it in America.
Yeah, it is. It's like people. Yeah, we are one country, but I think people don't understand that like each state is like they got their own thing going on. You know, like
Yeah.
I would hazard to say like each state is kind of like a country of its own.
Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it? Well, on to question number 2 on this episode. So, when you in the Nightmare Factory, do you feel like anybody gets an advantage of graduating from the Nightmare Factory, or do you just think it's just, you know, take on board all of the stuff that you get taught there, and it's, you know, you're not kind of...
It really depends on who you are. It's so funny to me because when I debuted, before I even debuted, I became a meme. The picture that Cody snapped of the alumni from the factory for our camp got posted online on Twitter, and somebody cropped me and said, "This is an anime protagonist," and I'm like, "Oh, that's funny because that's my gimmick." But, like, so I'm glad that like it translated well into like, you know, what I was trying to present, but like. So obviously in my case, it benefited me well. Brooke Havoc is another graduate who, you know, she's injured right now, but when she debuted, she was like the talk of the town. You know, everybody's like curious to see how far. And she was handpicked by Cody as like the student, so it's pretty cool to like, you know, like have that under your notch in your belt. I believe someone like Joey Silver, who he wrestled in Dark as Joey Sweets. He, you know, before this, he didn't get as much exposure, but now he has. You know, so now he's getting booked on all these shows. JDX, you know, who appeared in Dark multiple times. You know, he's oftentimes he's put in the Midwest category, and he definitely had like his moments. You know. His name has more value now. So in my case, yeah, I definitely think it really helped me blow up because I don't know if it was because of the meme or because I showed up on Dark or everything I've done since in the middle, but people...
I think, do you know what? I think it's a mixture of, I mean, for me personally, I was thinking about this today and I was thinking, well, I think it's a lot to do with the whole package because, you know, obviously you've had exposure from the Nightmare Factory, you've also been on Dark, but also your character is very, very unique. And, you know, people, I mean, my son, you know, he's 11 and he is a massive anime fan. And the minute he seen you, he was drawn to you straight away because of that, because he's an anime fan and he was, oh, look, there's an anime character in it. Do you know, so I think it's the complete package, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's still humbling to me to, like, you know, like, just be looked at and be like, yep. And I'm like, I don't know, like, I that's very humbling to hear, so thank you. Thank you so much.
No, but name another anime character. In wrestling. Name another anime character in wrestling.
Kenny. Kenny Omega. Yeah, so.
Okay, yeah, no, a proper anime character in wrestling.
No, okay. There's Tenshi, who I met through DPW, and he and I essentially have the same. Oh, Jaden, which I'm wrestling this week. His is more comic book superhero. But the parallels are there, and I just think it's the coolest thing. It's like,
yeah, but in probably mainstream America, there's not a lot of that. And with you having the exposure from the Nightmare Factory and from Dark, you've been kind of put on a stage that some of these guys probably haven't seen yet, and that's where it's a totally different gimmick and character than what's on offer. So when people see that, they're going to be like, interesting because it's something new. You know, it's one thing I love with wrestling is when I see something that is totally outside the box and someone's not doing.
Yeah. I do definitely think that, like, part of me wants to wrestle exactly like an anime character, which impossible because so they do defies physics, right? Like,
Do you try and incorporate some stuff like that though? You know, with your movements and whatnot.
when I can, I do them. Then yeah, I mean I've been developing some stuff which I've never seen in wrestling. I've seen it on like action films. I've seen it on Marvel films. I joke around with people, but this isn't really a joke. I want to wrestle like how Daredevil fights in his Netflix show because he just does flips and kicks and he's basically like a ninja. And I'm like, yeah, I want to wrestle like how Daredevil fights in that show, you know? Because that was feasible because they actually had stuntmen do the stunt moves, and it's not but it's impossible as like say doing like 5 spins in the air into like a kick, you know? I mean, I'm sure somebody can do it, but like do it in wrestling might be a little bit hard to translate. So the things I can, I try to, but the things I can't, well, I just like sorry.
Just pop them to one side. So when you left the Nightmare Factory, obviously, when you were there, was your character what you wanted to do, or was that something that was pushed to you?
I had originally planned to be a cyberpunk ninja. So very Watch Dogs, very Cyberpunk 2077. Obviously, like that's like the biggest thing. Like it's literally in the name, cyberpunk. But
yeah, you don't want a glitch like that though.
No, I don't want it. But it's funny because like that was one of like the names I kind of floated. It's like I want to be called Glitch, but then it rhymes so much with bitch, so I'm like, nah.
Yeah, you would if you were called Glitch, you would have fitted in with Cyberpunk because what a disappointment with the glitching on that game.
Yeah. But yeah, like my original ring name, and this was before the pandemic, was Virus. And I'm like, but I can't do that now because of the coronavirus. So the pandemic definitely made me reevaluate, like, not just my ring name, but the gimmick, the style, the moves I want to do. And Baron Black, who wrestles often on AEW, he kind of gave me the idea of, like, well, you're like an anime character, like an anime protagonist. And when he said protagonist, it kind of hit me. I was like,
a penny dropped.
Yeah, hold up. That's a thing I could do. So I did that, and I just really leaned in on the shonen like protagonist thing. I didn't have gear yet, so when I was getting my gear custom made for me, I specifically showed them like who I wanted to base it out of, which is My Hero Academia. And from there it kind of just took off. You know, I don't want to say I didn't have like a sense of where my career was going, because I did. I knew exactly what I wanted to be. I just and I definitely wanted to lean in on my culture. You know, like a little bit more of I want to say it's like a very geeky approach to wrestling, because at the end of the day I'm less of an athlete, more of a geek. So, and I think that's the thing that happens when people get into pro wrestling, is they either have a very good athletic background and they lean in on that, or they have a really good like performance background, like as far as like theater or acting or music, and they lean in on that. So you get like two kinds of wrestlers. You got the artistic ones and you got the athletic ones. And you often like you see like Kurt Angle versus like Darby Allin, kind of like.
Yeah, I get you. So when you left, obviously AEW went out in the Indies as they told you to. How did you end up coming back to Dark?
I woke up one day and I saw my email and they asked me if I want to be on Dark, and I'm like, hell yeah! What the? Are you kidding me, bro? What? I've been waiting for it. Because it's funny that we joke about like how you'll get on Dark and then that will be your graduation ceremony from the Nightmare Factory, because if you think about it, that would be the graduation bit. Like, you know, you get on TV after going through the school, that's it for you, and that's what I ended up doing. You know, I went on Dark and I went on there twice. The first time was great. The second time I didn't do as well. I made mistakes, but I like to say, hey man, I've only been doing it for 7 months. I'm allowed to cut me some slack, you know. And and for some reason I went viral on Twitter again. I was
Well,
like,
do you know one thing I'll say is my granddad always used to say to me, "Show me a man who's never made a mistake, and I'll tell you a man that's never learned nothing." That's what he always used to
oh,
say.
that's a really good adage. Yeah,
Mm.
I agree. Like, I mean, I like to think that yeah, I made mistakes. I'll learn from it, but
Hmm.
d- honestly, like I was heartbroken after my performance because I was like, oh man, like I shat the bed in front of everybody, and then I went trending on Twitter, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like I did terrible. And then my friends like kind of like told me it's like people don't really care if you could wrestle good, man. Like the people just see themselves in you and they want you to succeed regardless. And I was like,
Mm.
that's very true. I it, and like
The,
now,
the great Carly was a world champion, mate. Remember that?
hey man, he gets a lot of hate. You know, he gets a lot of hate for not being that much of a great like athlete, but like I said, dude, like there's two types of wrestlers. There's athletic ones who, you know, they can technical wrestle you all day, or there's the ones who are artistic or
Hmm.
who can make you feel things.
Exactly.
And I am in my 20s, and I still remember Great Khali squishing Ray's head, and I thought Ray was dead because he was just bleeding everywhere. And I remember feeling fear. And
Yeah.
this was around the time I already knew wrestling was scripted. So
Yeah.
feeling fear for something as simple as like a vice grip, you know, because now when we feel fear in wrestling, it's like when there's a burning table or someone's diving off like the balcony. That's when I feel like genuine fear for someone.
Yeah.
But like the Great Khali made me feel that with
With the
like
yeah.
a basketball, and I'm just like, like
That's
yeah,
it, isn't it? And that's what it's all about. It's you know, I mean, obviously you do have your hardcore wrestling fans who love the whole art of it and what's going on and stuff like that, which is great. But some wrestling fans love the entertainment aspect as well, and you know how you make them feel. And as you said, you know, living their kind of thing through you, what they want to do, what they can't, so they live it through you.
yeah, and I've said this before. That now that's a responsibility that I find hard to not I don't find it hard to uphold. I find it scary to maintain
Mm.
because like I just need to be myself, and because I feel like
Yeah.
people gravitated to me because I was just being me. But now it's like, oh god, like now that people gravitate towards me, I just gotta be mindful of how I am as
Mm.
far as like, because like now that you got people looking up to you, mistakes have a little bit more weight in them
Mm.
because nobody likes it when they see their heroes fall and falter. You know, like
No. No.
it,
But at the same time, it's still a great story to show people that even if you do make mistakes, how you go about fixing them and getting back on top again and stuff like that. You know, that's all part of the process and part of the inspiration. You know, at the end of the day, not everyone wants to see somebody who's perfect and who's not a normal human being, because it just doesn't translate though into life in real life, does it?
I mean, I think one of the cool things about my story right now, especially for the people who kind of came in on board right now, like, is you're seeing someone who their whole life has been a wallflower, and I'm a bit bright as far as like, you know, like how I look upon things with perspective. That's because I've had life experiences to
Hmm.
shape who I am. But what you're seeing right now is someone like attaining fame, and y'all are seeing it real time, actually pretty exponentially fast too, considering that not even like 4 months ago I only had like 2,000 followers on Twitter. So now that I'm looking at like I believe I'm at 12K now, and it's still growing, and it's growing so fast to the point where my status as I mean, I hate to say it, but it's a niche celebrity on Twitter in the small microscope of the internet. But people are seeing that unfold right before their eyes, and I think that's the appeal. Because like, if I was just a regular person trying to like gain, like wanting to see that process unfold, I think my case is like the perfect study for that.
Hmm.
I went from like a lifetime of obscurity and just, you know, I mean, I was in a band, sure, but we were terrible. We had like, what, 5 bands? And we weren't that good. So, but I went from like a life of obscurity and being unnoticed to almost just having aspects of my life being exposed to the world outside of my control. And that, I think, yeah, and that's why I love doing interviews. I love telling my story, because if I get to say it from my standpoint, it comes from me. And I like to think I'm genuine, so like it comes from a heartfelt like standpoint instead of like someone else telling my story. And I think that's
and you're not fake either. You leave it all out there exactly how it is, which is the best way to be. And people always do you appreciate the honesty with stuff like that?
I'm not good enough to lie and grammar. I mean, yeah, I'm a wrestler, like kind of like performing in front of people, like, you know, but like, bro, like these conversations, man, I come into here, I don't have no script. I'm just saying the first thing on my mind, I'm on tangents, the caffeine hits, and suddenly I'm talking about Mass Effect or something. I don't know, dude.
That's it. Well, Courtney says she's one of your new followers. She comes from, obviously, WrestleBuddy. She's following you now on social media. She should be part of the journey. Mine still says, fantasy is the key for sure. The best characters usually ones who are cranked up to 11. They definitely are, but also feel like, you know, as you say there with your story, you're living this dream that you're achieving and you're going through, and you know, now at the moment you've got your followers on Twitter and stuff like that, and they're seeing that growth in do you know what I mean, and people will join along the way, and the more exposure you get and stuff like that. But these fans can go back to the very beginning and follow that journey from step by step. So when that journey gets to a point where there's starts to be titles involved and things like that, you know, people won't be looking at it going, he did it. They'll be looking at it and thinking, we did it. You know, that's how people get really involved and really, you know, they buy into things because people always want to see the success of people, and, you know, nice people anyway. Obviously you get the nasty people, which is thingy, but you know, the people who become your followers and follow what you are and what you believe in and stuff like that, and they respect you, they start buying into it. And then, as I say, you know, later down this journey that you're on and it gets there, as I believe it'll be a big thing for people, because it's like, we did it, rather than just, you know, here's a wrestler who's won it. You know what I mean? We've seen it time and time again. I think Mick Foley was a prime example. You know, he'd worked how long throughout his whole career, and you know, even, you know, back in the day when Tony Schiavone announced on WCW television that Mick Foley was going to win the title tonight, and it actually dropped all the viewership from WCW, and they all switched over to WWF at the time, because they all wanted to see Foley do well, because he was one of the good guys. He was one of the guys that everybody had seen in the lower shows and built himself up and stuff like that. So, you know, for me, you're just coming on this same journey, so it's an interesting journey, and you know, obviously I'm enjoying doing the podcast with you, mate, and it's good to see that journey and where we're up to, and it's only gonna go further, isn't it?
I hope so, man, because honestly, and I'm humbled to get that comparison to Foley, you know, because he's also one of, like, you know, like he had like that reputation of being one of like the nicest people in wrestling, the easiest things in wrestling. I have an opportunity that not a lot of people get, and I'm not talking about like being able to wrestle, because like that's fine and all, but now it hit me like, okay, now I have an opportunity not just to change the world of wrestling, but just the world in general, and if I could help shape like the people who believe in me, the people who follow me, into like better people, you know, and I'm trying. You know,
but also, you know, for any promoter as well, is with your anime style character, as I say, with my son's a big anime fan. He's a wrestling fan through me, but you know, he's got friends that are just into anime, and he showed them a couple of your videos on YouTube, and some of them were saying to me, when are you next speaking to him, when's he on this, and they were dead interested in it. It wasn't because of the wrestling aspect that they were interested in, it was the anime. So you know, as if I'm a promoter and I'm looking, I'm thinking, okay, well, if he starts getting this share around the internet and stuff, not only is it going to be wrestling fans that are going to buy in, but also you've got a whole community there that is probably not exposed to a lot of wrestling where somebody like yourself can bring them eyes, then different type of eyes onto the product.
That's the hope. Yeah, I mean, I've always said wrestling is just it's live action anime if you think about it.
Yeah.
It
So
really is.
that's it. My name is Sol said. That's exactly right. There's no better feeling as a fan than seeing a talent you root for make it. Being from Seattle, the success of Shane Strickland is our success as well. You know, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Well, kids, what we'll do is we'll wrap it up from there, and then obviously next week's going to be our final episode of Series 1. Obviously give you the chance to go out there and make some more history, and we can move on from there. But guys, thanks for watching. Appreciate it, Courtney, Sol, everybody else who's been here. We appreciate you watching, and you know, I hope you found this story informative and inspirational as I do, and we'll see you again next week. But from me and kids, take care.
Thank you.
Oh, I don't know where we are. Let me just wait 1 second. Sorry. This is what happens when you get some kind of technical